This program is brought to you by Project Success Ministries International. The content, views, and opinion are the sole responsibility of Project Success.
Hello, and thank you for joining us with this edition of Project Success, Taking It to the Streets. I'm your host, Pastor Bridget Jolly. If you've been joining us each week on this program, you know that it is our goal to bring to you solutions to real-life problems from a Bible standpoint. If you've been joining us, you know that we deal with serious topics that ordinary people, the Christian community, just don't discuss. But we find it necessary to do so because Christians, believers, are not exempt from bad things happening to them. So once again, we're here with a serious topic today. So don't you touch that remote. Stay with us. This edition will be talking about domestic violent murders. Yes, domestic violent murders. And we have two very special guests with us, and we're just delighted that they're with us today to share their personal testimonies, one of which is not a stranger to the Birmingham community. She held one of the top offices in the Birmingham government. We want you to welcome Annetta Nunn to our program today, and we're just so delighted to have her. A person that is not a stranger to the Birmingham city. She held one of the top offices in the city, the chief of police. She's here to share with us her personal testimony. Her family was affected by this tragedy of domestic violence, and she's here to give her testimony about it. Won't you welcome her to our show, Annetta Nunn. Thank you so much for being here with us, Ms. Nunn.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Secondly, a young lady also here today to share her testimony, still grieving from the devastation of the aftermath of domestic violence. Her fiance or her boyfriend beat her 2-year-old child to death. You heard me right, friends. He beat the child to death. Domestic violence is serious. We want you to welcome her to the show. She is LaShondra Smith. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's just a good idea to just jump right in and let's just discuss this subject. We want to start first with you, Ms. Nunn. Will you share with us exactly what happened? I know some of the, of the story about the murder that took place. Was it your cousin?
Yes. In 2000, it was around August of 2000, my cousin Amy Franks was killed by her boyfriend. It was a murder-suicide. She had sought help, sought help from the Birmingham Police Department, and the Domestic Violence Unit, Project SAFE, had recommended that she go into shelter because of the various risk factors that they had analyzed. But she felt that she would be okay if she just got her children to her parents that she would be fine. She took her children to her parents, and she returned to Birmingham and was in the process of getting ready to go to work that particular day because her uniform was still laying on the bed. Unknown to her, her boyfriend had gotten inside of the residence and actually chased her outside without her clothes on. He killed her in the front yard, and then he killed himself.
Listen, friends, if you find yourself in a similar situation, you're in a situation right now where you are experiencing some domestic violence. We've just heard what can happen. Ms. Nunn, do you know if there were signs that led up to, did he show some type of signs that he may commit such an act of violence?
Well, we're quite sure that he did because the domestic violence unit felt that it was best that she go into shelter. And where I now work at the YWCA of Central Alabama, the domestic violence court advocate, that's one of the things that we do. When we talk to various clients, we assess the risk factors. If they're in these type of relationships and there have been present or past abuse, whether it's physical, most people think it's actually putting your hands on someone, but they need to know that it can be emotional, financial, verbal abuse. There usually are signs.
Absolutely.
They may not recognize them, but if they are being continuous, it's a pattern. Not everyone argues at some point. We're talking about a pattern of abusive tactics that are used to maintain or gain power and control over that individual. That's what domestic violence is all about, maintaining that power and control. It could be through the finances. They don't allow the person to work, or if they do work, the abuser will control all the finances. You have to report. You can't spend without letting them know. You have no idea of how much money you have or where it's located. And we all know what physical can be, but they need to know it can be the push. We've had people in court that say, well, it wasn't domestic violence. All he did was slap me. That's abuse. The emotional, telling them that you're not worth anything, you'll never be worth anything, nobody wants you. And then there are warning signs that the danger could be imminent. If they tell you that if I can't have you, nobody else will, or I'm going to kill you and kill myself, or I'll kill the children. It wasn't too long ago, I believe it was last year in Montgomery, that there was a case where the male, he couldn't get to his ex-wife to kill her. He was bringing the children back, and he parked the car in the front. He killed the 3 children in the car, and then he killed himself and left his ex-wife to find the children in the car. That was his last act of vengeance. And it's intentional. There's no mistake about it. It is intentional, and they need to know that there is help there. The YWCA of Central Alabama, we have a lot of services to help the individuals who are engaged in these type of relationships, and it's confidential. So they need to know that we don't share this information with anyone.
Okay. So we're going to make that information available to you a little bit later, and we're going to also put on our screen some signs of whether or not you are in a domestic violent relationship. I just heard her say that domestic violence is defined differently by different people. So we want to put up, some things that he may be doing or she may be doing that will clearly determine whether you're in a domestic violence situation. So now let's talk a little bit with you, Ms. Smith, a young lady that I have decided to mentor, and I've taken her under wings, and I talk to her every day. And you are just a blessing, and we want to kind of go back, if you will, because I know that there's young ladies that are pretty much in the same situation that you was in at the time of this attack. And it is important that we get the message across, that this is serious. So take us back to that October 21st, 2007 day that you came in and found your son. Tell me kind of what happened.
Approximately 7:45 a.m. on October 21st, 2007. I walked into my Montebello Gardens apartment located on the south side, where I found the remains of my son laying on the side of my bed, crying blood. I panicked. I called his grandmother, and I asked his grandmother, I said, Matthew, stop breathing. She was like, don't touch him. I said, Miss Cruz, I don't know what's going on with Matthew. I know this ain't asthma. Matthew is not breathing. He's not moving. He's crying blood. He's bleeding. I don't know what's wrong. I was like, it's some marks on his forehead, and I was just going on and on. She was like, calm down, calm down.
So where was the abuser at that time?
He was standing over Matthew.
Okay.
2 weeks before my son, prior to my son's death, my mom and the abuser had got to arguing. And she stated to the guy that if you did anything to my grandson, I was going to get you. At the time, you know, the warning that I had received from my son, he was crying and he didn't want to stay. I just thought that he was crying because I was going to work at nighttime.
So he didn't want to stay with the abuser. He began to cry when you was, okay,
Every
you're going to
time
leave
I
him.
leave, little Matthew will cry. And his last words was to me on October the 20th. I laid him down, we said our prayer. And I said, Matthew, Mama love you. He said, I love you too. And me and the abuser got to arguing because I had told him I didn't want to be with him anymore. And he had asked me why, and I was like, because I just don't want to be with you no more. I'm tired of using drugs. I'm tired of folks saying that you're not the one for me. I'm just tired of it, period. And he was like, I know what make you happy, and I know what make you sad. So by me being a little smart mouth, I was like, well, if you don't want to watch my son, that's all you have to say. And he smiled. He said, it's not your son, it's you. But the whole time, he was abusing my child.
So you didn't have any clue that he was
I didn't.
actually abusing him physically?
I didn't have no clue.
So you didn't see any marks or anything on his body that would indicate to you that he was abusing him?
October the 4th, once I got off of work, neighbor said that Matthew had fallen off a bike. So I immediately got off and I rushed Matthew to the hospital, to Children's Hospital, and the doctor, she told me, she was like, it's normal for kids to fall off their little training wheel. So I just went on with that. And I asked them to perform a CAT scan to make sure there was no abuse going on, and they told me they couldn't perform a CAT scan. So.
Okay, but you suspected that there may be abuse. You
Yes,
just,
ma'am.
okay. So let me ask you, now was he abusive to you as well? Did he,
The only
did you?
abusive thing he abused me mentally and emotionally. He used to tell me, nobody don't want you, you know, call me all out my name, bring my self-esteem down. And I just got tired and I just got fed up.
But he never physically abused you? He never touched you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What would you like to say?
Well, I just want to send out to all the young girls, you know, there is signs. You know, my sign was 2 days before my son's death. You know, my son had flipped in the Bible, and the scripture had came out, the devil is in your home to kill, steal, and destroy. 2 weeks before that, I had a dream about a young body was dead, lying in a casket, and it was a black spirit standing over it, not knowing it was my son. And my thoughts to you young ladies today, you know, if your child screams, holler, you know, tell you something ain't right, shake your head, you know, seeing any kind of warnings, little strange warnings, it's best you pay attention. Because I wouldn't want no young mother to wind up like I did. You know, it's 3 years. You know, it's hurtful and it's painful because